China, industrial powerhouse and urban giant. But beyond the familiar images of bristling skylines and busy streets is a different China. This is a land of extremes, a land of great natural beauty, a land where resourceful people have built extraordinary lives against the odds. The hunters, the gatherers, and the farmers of China. On this journey of discovery, we plunge deep into a remarkable, mysterious, and hidden world. Get ready to enter Secret China. This episode of Secret China enters the lives of communities at 4 points of the compass of this giant nation. Wildly different worlds united by a single theme. The ingenuity of people who must coax a living from the most unforgiving landscapes. In the far north, where China borders Russia, lumberjacks work in forests lost under deep snow for half the year to harvest the wood to build a nation. In the misty mountains of the east, in Jiangshi province, the last of the orchid hunters risk their lives searching for a tiny plant worth literally its weight in gold. And on the tropical south coast, families labor, as they have done for over 1,000 years, to extract one of the world's most important minerals from the ocean. But our journey into Secret China begins in the southwest, in the province of Yunnan, and with a man who's lived in the village of Orchid all his life. Suomu was born in the house where he still lives. A father of 3, he lives here with his wife and 2 grandchildren. Suomu, like all the people in his village, is a member of the Hainan ethnic group. Around 2,000 years ago, their ancestors settled here and tried to do that most basic of things, grow food. But the results were anything but ordinary. Their new home was too steep and forested for ordinary fields. So, to farm the rugged terrain, they moved mountains and sculpted the first rice terraces in China. But having conquered one problem with this miracle of ancient engineering, they met another. Their steep terraces fell victim to landslides. The only way to solve the problem was to keep the terraces filled with water all year round. And the only way to achieve that was with one of the most ambitious plumbing jobs in history. They built dikes and ditches. They dug channels and sluices, until at last they created an irrigation system that connected every single field on the mountainside. And that's where Suomu comes in. He's the water master of Orchid village.
我呢在人啊，不错。我得今天你等我明年我头我说句头，今天你比我们早。我得明年我才把第二年同定个什么？
Without Suomu's work, the crops would fail, the landslides could return, and the rice terraces on which the whole community depends, and that have been here since before the time of the Roman Empire, would be in danger.
我得明年我才把第二年同定个什么？知道吗？我第二年啊，我得我只把红利懂哦。
Rising up mountains 5 times the height of the Empire State Building, each hillside has up to 3,000 water-filled individual steps. Suomu isn't in charge of them all, but he does have to patrol 400 kilometers of water channels and walks a daily inspection route of about 30 kilometers.
Aduh aci halu jalu aci itu sana, buane jalan bocor. Nanti tino itu menyamau itu loh suju itu loh.
The key to the whole system is the wooden water divider. Each of the dividers has to be perfect for its role in regulating the water flow. Suomu makes each divider individually to allow just the right amount of water into each field. It's all a matter of balance. Too little water and the rice won't flourish. Too much and the weight of water could cause the ancient dikes to fail.
哎，我自己嘛，哎，阿边我自己嘛，伊个我做伊个嘛边他，哎，是啦，那唔知咧，这个面边啷个的，这个面边啷个拉达卡。
In this, his first year as watermaster, Suomu has worked hard. He knows everyone in the village depends on him. Right now, he's anxious because tomorrow is a big day. His family will harvest their rice fields. Suomu knows all eyes in the village are on him, as his harvest will be an indication for everyone if next year will be one of plenty or of hardship. "3,000 kilometers away in China's far north, it's a very different frozen landscape. At the foot of forested hills, this is Beihung village, a community of farmers and woodsmen. Temperatures here drop to -20 during the winter day and as low as -50 at night. Winter can last 6 months. This is home for Zhang Yaosong. He's lived in Beihung village with his sister all his life.
给你爸整棒子呢，写完作业了吗？
啥今天这作业不够了，看是不是得弄点鱼去？
那你现在去找去吧。行，那你就别批了。
Like many of the people here, Zhang has a mixed heritage. The border with Russia is only a kilometer away, and that's where his forebears came from. Russian or Chinese, something that's always been a struggle for the people who live here is the difficulty of growing food. So men like Zhang from China's northern forests hunt to supplement their diet, even in the dead of winter. Getting to the best hunting grounds is a long journey, and the winter day is short. So first, Zhang needs to persuade a neighbor to help him.
什么事儿？有点事儿，找你有点事儿。
什么事儿？说吧。
这家里没有鱼了，想找你的马爬的，拉着我们上下边去打鱼去。
啊，行，行。
这马挺胖，
还行了。
这马快吧？
快。
啊，
快，你穿暖和点，多穿点，今天挺冷。
行，正好我把老穆再招呼着。
哎，行。啊，你赶紧去，这早去早回来。
啊，行。
哎，别耽误了啊。哎，好的。
The men from the northern forests have travelled like this since horses were brought here by the Mongols in the 13th century. They're sledging along the river that marks the border with Russia. In winter, it's a frozen motorway, and by far the best road to take at this time of year.
没有太阳阴冷啊，之前要摘鱼下网，那老动手了。
Knowing where to look for fish is a skill passed on down the generations here.
这干，哈，就在这干。
Picking their spot, Jiang and his friends use a technique similar to the Inuit when they fish in Arctic waters. They use a pick to break through ice 15 centimeters thick. They make 2 holes and feed the net in through one hole and out the other. During the northern winter, the sun sets around 2 p.m. The ice fishermen have just a short window to catch their food and get back to the village before temperatures plummet to dangerous lows. Jiang has set his trap. Now all he can do is wait. Intense cold shapes life in the northern forests. In Jiangshi province in the east of China, the landscape is dominated by mountain and river. The Chinese settled this area 6,000 years ago, long before the time of the Egyptian pharaohs. Hemmed in by mountains on 3 sides, this river has always been a highway for the people here, linking them with the rest of China. And over the generations, they've probed the hidden treasures of even the most dangerous of the towering cliffs that surround it. One man with the nerves of steel necessary to climb the cliffs here is Li Laosan. Today, he's using an ancient method to make a new rope for cliff climbing, because he's about to go on an aerial treasure hunt for the most valuable of all the mountain's hidden riches. He's going in search of a rare mountain flower that is literally worth its weight in gold. An orchid that only grows on high cliffs, in the shade, and at an altitude of over 1,000 meters. The orchid's huge value in Chinese medicine is based on the belief that anything hardy enough to survive in such an exposed habitat will make the body strong. Li is going out with 2 friends to scour the towering cliffs for the tiny flower. Thousands used to come from all over China to search for these orchids. But now the extreme dangers of the hunt has led most to abandon the profession. Li is now one of just 5 orchid hunters left in Jiangshi. Danger isn't the only problem for the orchid hunters. Finding the tiny plants in the wilderness is a skill in itself. Li knows exactly when to go.
每年个5月份，5月份差不多。 农历5月了，不是，因为现在田里树全部开花了，到山上去找也好找一点。不开花，那你在山上就难看到，看不到。
Li can tilt the odds a little in his favor by choosing the right season to go orchid hunting. But the flower is so rare and the wilderness so dense that Li and his friends expect to walk 50 kilometers a day in their search. And even so, they will often return home empty-handed. In rural Yunnan, the working day starts early. At 5:30 a.m., the morning mist is clearing above the village of Orchid. The 1.5 million Hani people who live in this region trace their ancestry back to Tibet. Most of them are rice farmers and live in villages between the forests and their paddy fields. Their homes are carefully placed high on the hillside. Suomu is the watermaster of Orchid, and he knows that this position enables them to control the precious water that flows out from the forest. They divert it through their villages and on into the rice terraces below. Their houses are known as mushroom homes because of their top-heavy shape. Built from mud, bamboo and thatch, they're perfectly adapted to the Hanese agricultural way of life. In Suomu's house, the ground floor is home to livestock. The third is for drying grain and firewood. The family live on the middle floor. Today, the house is full as they get ready for one of the most important days of the calendar year. The rice harvest. The day on which Suomu discovers if his hard work in charge of the irrigation system for the whole village has been successful. These days, many young Hani people have left the village to find work in the big city, just like Suomu's 3 children who've gone, leaving their children behind in the village with their grandparents. It's difficult for the kids not seeing their parents for months at a time, but it's been a necessity. For all farmers, harvest time is not only the busiest season, it's also a tense time, as they wait to discover how good their crop will be. So today is nerve-wracking for Suomu, but also joyful. His son, Luosha, father of the 2 grandchildren, has come home from the city to help bring in the harvest. But Luosha is worried. It's been raining heavily. If it rains during the harvest, the rice will be spoiled and only fit to feed the animals. But Suomu is confident. Despite the early morning mist, he thinks the time is right to bring the harvest home. And they won't be working alone. It's a Hani tradition that on harvest days the whole village turns out to help. They must walk 15 kilometers to reach Suomu's rice fields. Now, he can only hope the weather will clear and the harvest will be good. A very different type of harvest takes place off the southern coast of China. This is Hainan Island, where fishermen have found another way of harvesting the ocean's riches. These strange shapes are part of a very unusual production line. It's a natural factory that uses the unique geology, climate and coastal system of Hainan to produce a mineral that's the world's most common cooking ingredient: salt. The largest salt farm on Hainan is near the village of Yanding. It's home to the salt men. And one who has truly mastered the art of pulling salt from the sea is Li Shanghua, the salt king of Yanding. He and his wife, Cui Ni, rely on the sea for their livelihood. They take fish from the ocean and salt from the water itself. Whilst battles raged across medieval Europe, his family were peacefully producing salt here in the same way they do today.
我们传统是1000多年了，1000多年的历史，祖祖辈辈都是祖祖辈辈一进到我们这村，就开始搞盐做盐了。我们祖祖辈辈没有单身吃船的，每一个人都传统都经验都已经掐到手了。
It's a life that follows the daily rhythms of the sea and the sun.
如果太阳不热了，阴天下雨了，那个盐就产不成了，所以呢，少流不上来，那个海水没上来的时候，那就不晒盐。
But when the conditions are right, the working day for Cui Ni and Shanghua starts at first light.
过早点插进来，等太阳晒9点，太阳晒9点再接近。基础步骤呢，先把那工字、茶籽、水红，然后再把那水插在地里面。 就把那沙子从中插过那海水浮过的地里面去，那就第一个环节是我们拿那个木拖把，拿那个木拖把进来是要2个人，一个人拖，一个人推，推了整个过程，推完了，把那沙子集中在沙坑里边去，到沙坑里边去，然后这沙子再挖一个小坑，然后就把海水倒进坑里面去。
With step 1 and 2 complete, the king of salt leaves gravity and, if the weather is right, the hot sun to take over. Now, he and his fellow workers take shelter from the powerful rays, and after that early start, catch up on a little shut-eye. More than 3,000 kilometers due north from Hainan Island, in the frozen lands that border Russia, people must survive some 6 months of extreme cold every year. When temperatures drop, the river becomes a road, and fishermen must break through 15 centimeters of ice to make a catch. In the forests, even deep snow doesn't hold back the woodcutters. This is a man known to his friends as Lumberjack Mung. He's 54 now, and since he was just 19, he's chopped down trees for a living. Mung and his wife built this cabin for his logging team. The converted bus may not look much, but before it was here, the crew slept under canvas in temperatures that could drop as low as -50. Meng's wife does the cooking and cleaning for the team and sends them off to work after a full breakfast to ward off the cold. Out on the ice, fisherman Zhang Yaosong has his nets in the water. He knows that back in the village, his sister is waiting for him to bring home fish for dinner. But now the weather is closing in. At -40 degrees, water freezes almost instantly, and leaving bare skin exposed for as little as 15 minutes can lead to frostbite. But they still haven't caught any fish. It's a sub-zero waiting game for them. But whilst they stand guard, lumberjack Meng is hard at work, eyeing up which tree to chop down today. Meng and men like him have been doing this job here since before the building of the Forbidden City in Beijing. The timber from these forests has been used to build Chinese empires since the 12th century. Since Meng started working in the Great Northern Forests 35 years ago, change has been dramatic. As China has grown, so too has the demand for wood to build homes. And that means that all the easy pickings in this forest have now been taken. Most of the remaining trees are on steep mountain slopes, meaning the woodsmen often have to struggle upwards through knee-high snow, winching their machinery up after them. The Chinese government has decided that this demand for timber is unsustainable, and they've now stopped all logging in the country's native forests. These are some of the last trees that the woodsmen of the north will ever cut down. At the end of this season, the chainsaws will fall silent and the forest will return to a stillness not seen in 800 years. In a forest untouched by chainsaws, 2,000 kilometers away in the east of China, Li Laosan, the last orchid hunter of Jiangshi province, has walked deep into the mountains in search of a rare flower that is highly prized in Chinese medicine. In this dense forest, it's easy to get lost. But the herb gatherers have an ancient trick to find their way out. Their shouting bounces sound waves through the forest canopy and off the nearest cliffs. It's like their very own radar to lead them to the rocky outcrops they are searching for. Getting lost isn't the only hidden danger in this forest. That's a cobra, one of China's most aggressive and venomous snakes. 20 people a year are killed by its bite. But Li and his friends aren't scared. For them, the cobra is more valuable than it is frightening. They can sell every part of it for a good price. The flesh is prized by local chefs. the skin and even its deadly venom can be used in traditional Chinese medicine. However, a cobra doesn't come close in value to the orchids that Li and his friends have come here to find. Finally, they arrive at one of their favorite hunting grounds for the flowers.
一个草编的有几件，一个草编的啥？可能8的有件事。
It takes a certain type of person to be an orchid hunter.
身体测试身体都可以，都好。瘦小，那肯定啊，体型瘦小一点。走爬山的时候都轻巧一点。
As they climb upwards, a spectacular landscape reveals itself. The deep red sandstone cliffs they can see are what's left of 80-million-year-old rock that has been lifted up by tectonic activity and then eroded by rainfall ever since. It's called a Danxia landform, and this is one of the few places on Earth where it's found. The orchid Li is searching for clings on in a part of that landscape called Dragon Tiger Mountain. When they safely reach the summit, Li can't hang around for too long. They've already spent 6 hours trekking here. And if they don't find the orchids quickly, they'll have to abandon the whole expedition. In Yunnan, once wild mountains and cliffs have been tamed by thousands of years of farming. Suomu, the watermaster of Arjika village, is on his way to harvest his rice fields. It's a 15-kilometer walk from the village, crossing thousands of terraces that now cover an area bigger than New York City. Suomu and his family own just 3 fields, but even so it's a lot of work, and his son Luo Shah and many neighbors have turned out to help. Suomu is hoping for at least 20 bags of rice from the harvest this year. The terraces have been planted to make use of every square inch of land. Soybeans on the terrace walls, rice inside, fish and ducks in the water. Pesticides or chemical fertilizers would disrupt the delicate balance that exists here between animal, plant and water. So the Hani have farmed organically since long before it was fashionable. But despite all of that, last year the harvest was poor for Suomu's family, and they collected only 16 bags of rice. In his first season as the watermaster of the village, he's hoping for better. Today, he's pleased to see that despite Luo Shah's worries, the day has turned out sunny and fine, the best weather for harvesting. The work is split between the women and the men of the village. The women spend the day ankle deep in water, cutting and bundling the rice plants, whilst the men beat the rice into their floating collection boat, dislodging the husks, and then bag them for transport back to the village. Continues all day until dinner time and the first chance to count the bags of rice. It turns out it's a bumper harvest. Suomu's fields have produced 27 bags of rice, almost double what they got last year. Luo Sha may have been worried about the weather and the harvest being poor, but there was no need. Suomu's rice store will be full for the coming year, and from tomorrow on, the family will be feasting on this year's fresh crop. It's been a good first year for Suomu, watermaster of the village of Ajeka. On Hainan Island, the saltmen bring in a harvest that is not seasonal, but a daily process that relies on the power of the sun and the tides of the sea. It's time for the King of Salt to supervise the next stage in his harvest. Yesterday, Xianghua and his wife, Cui Ni, emptied the briny water from their salt pits into a volcanic pool.
今天的过滤勺的水是一定要等到明天早上8点钟，就从过滤石弄上洁净水来晒。
The final stage relies on the exothermic quality of the local rock, something the islanders learnt to harness over 1,000 years ago. You can see the rock all over the island. Its dark color and porous surface mean it's excellent at absorbing heat from the sun. Over a sunny day, this speeds up the evaporation of the concentrated salty water.
经过了8点到2点钟，结晶一部分，到6点钟就全部结晶完了。
Once the sun has worked its magic on the briny water, all that remains is to collect the pure crystalline sea salt.
看你的盐白还不白，或是黄色颜色盐不一样，那白色的就多点，黄色的就少点。
Today, Xianghua and Cui Ni collected 50 kilograms of salt. Day in, day out, the people of Yanding harvest salt this way, using nothing but seawater, sunshine, and the unusual properties of the volcanic rocks of their island. It's Xianghua's conviction that as long as the sun rises and the tide comes in, there will be someone from his family to carry on the tradition here.
所以呢，我们一定要祖祖辈辈传下去，晒盐。我对我们这种盐呢，对我们有着失望的，主要是打出外面去，把我们这种盐推广，然后呢，推广以后有人打造以后，那么我们的盐地什么盐就全部都把它整个全部盐的中片大片的发展起来。这是我的希望，
In the remote mountains of eastern China, Li Lao San, last of the orchid hunters, thinks he's spotted a clump of precious orchids clinging to a near vertical rock face. A single kilogram of these rare orchids found their way onto the market last year. That makes them extremely valuable, and in the past, thousands of herb gatherers risked their lives swinging on homespun ropes to find orchids. But of those thousands, Li Lao's son is almost the only one left. And he's going over the edge. The number of orchids growing wild has plummeted, and they get more difficult to find each year. The last ones are in truly isolated places, where only the bravest and most agile hunters can find them. Just when it looked like the long journey and dangerous climb could be for nothing, Li finds a small group of orchids. Happy with his work, Li hauls himself back up the steep cliff. It's a long walk home, but it's made easier in the knowledge they've plucked 12 orchids from the cliff. They weigh in at a minuscule 4.5 grams. But even that amount is worth almost $1,000 US. It's been a profitable trip out for Li. But profit isn't the end of the story. Li has seen all the other orchid hunters retire, and overpicking and pollution almost wipe out the plants themselves. So he made a decision. Not only is Li the last orchid hunter, he is the first orchid grower.
2010年开始吧，就把这个野生的铁皮树保存起来，种在这一块吧。
He beds half of all the plants he finds into a nursery at home. Only when they are mature does he sell them, and any new seedlings, he returns to the wild.
我们这里也是都是说这个野生的掉了，现在铁皮树很少。现在我们都把它收集起来，全部种这个铁皮石这个石壁上。 我们实实在在都是采这个为生的哈。现在搞旅游，这个野生的现在又少了，然后现在我们有想法把它们全部收集起来，保存在这个山上。
With Li giving back, as well as taking from this unique habitat, there's a chance that the sun might not be setting on his profession, and on these precious little plants. Up in the forests of the far north, there's still no fish for Zhang and his hunting companions. Long, lonely hours are common in this remote part of the country. This is a harsh environment, and just like the rice farmers of Yunnan, many of the young people born here have chosen to leave for friendlier climates and easier opportunities. All that's left as a reminder of them are photographs turned brittle by the cold.
一想起来的时候就拿出来看看，没办法，这么老远，人家在山东，咱们在大兴安岭，哎呀，不容易啊，不是说这屋到那屋说回来就回来的。
The fishermen have been here for over 6 hours, with just each other and their memories for comfort. It's time to pull the nets out and head for home.
线太细了，那个一撞就撞个窟窿还。
They may look small, but believe it or not, this is a decent result for the fishermen.
逮到鱼以后，心里都猛地上了一条鱼，心里特高兴啊！一是可以逮着鱼回来家自己吃，二来可以卖了以后做一个家庭收入。
Fresh food is so hard to come by in the winter months. Even the smallest of fish are a precious resource. In town, these humble little fish will sell for 5-star prices, up to $25 US each to the tourists who travel from further south. It's also the end of the day for Hmong and the woodsmen of the north. As the last of their trees falls to the ground, they haul it from the forest. This may be hard work, but having grown up as lumberjacks, it's all that Hmong and his crew know. When the snow melts this spring, their forest will be closed to all logging. The government ban will signal the end of a way of life that stretches back for over 800 years. In an area less densely populated than Norway, the locals will happily travel for miles to seek out each other's company.
你要早知道一个个劈个扁的，砸墙上了你。
As they prepare to bid farewell to their lives as woodsmen, the winter nights are full of talk about the future.
收拾收拾，开家庭旅馆，旅游行早晚。
张叔没有啥想法啊？
我也想到时候开一个。
In a neat reversal, instead of supplying the wood that once built homes across China, many of the workers of this northern outpost are getting ready to welcome visitors from around the nation into their own homes. And as the moon rises over Beihung village, outside one of the guest houses is a possible taste of the future. Modern China will come to visit even these most distant corners of the country. Here to experience and celebrate a way of life on the edge. To discover the way of life in secret China.